Hey everybody, Harry here to talk about an actual defense closing argument that would involve a theory and a narrative. So recall my continuing kind of criticism with the defense in the Trump case has been that it's taken pot shots at credibility of different witnesses or tried to undermine certain pieces of evidence, but that it hasn't really presented a counter narrative in response to the prosecution's quite tight and coherent narrative starting, from Pecker to Cohen. And while nothing in the law requires the defense to do that, and the prosecution has the beyond the reasonable doubt burden, and it only takes one, et cetera, as I've pounded home repeatedly, it really makes a difference to have a theory. So, for example, an alibi, that's a theory of the case, a story you can get up and tell the jury rather than just saying, this or that witness is not to be believed. All right. So the New York Times, which probably has, spoken to people in the defense camp, says we have a theory. And that's what they're going to propound tomorrow. Remember, they go first. And then the prosecution second. There's no third rebuttal argument as occurs in other systems. And the theory is Alan Weisselberg, the missing man. So the notion's going to be that it was really Weisselberg, the impresario here, and Trump at a minimum was shielded by him enough, the loyal soldier, so that he didn't know what was happening, didn't have the requisite intent. And Weisselberg is the missing witness. So that'll be the sort of, that's a theory, right? Where is Alan Weisselberg? Why didn't the prosecution bring him? And he's really the whole purpose here. That's a pretty common approach. Right now, Senator Menendez is on trial. His wife has also been indicted, but they are being tried separately. So Senator Menendez in his trial is saying it was all the wife. Now, it's a really nasty kind of defense because they know where he is. Everyone knows where Weisselberg is, and the reason that the prosecution hasn't called him. But, it fits in. There's no all's fair in closing arguments, and that's what they'll try to frame. I'll get to a moment about whether it might be effective or not, but I just want to explain how it came to be. Because where is Alan Weisselberg? In the key meeting, he figures in really critically in the story early on. Trump in January 2021 tells him and Cohen to just go and figure it out and take care of it. And we have what's probably the most important document in the case, his writing on an invoice that gets you from the $130 that Cohen paid to Stormy Daniels to the $420 that is the reimbursement. And it's what sort of requires or really pushes this defense on them, because there's no getting around it. And he also then has a meeting with later with Cohen where it's all reinforced. There's a nice meeting when Cohen is leaving the organization, etc. But Weisselberg has already lied and committed he has been the ultimate, if you take the mob boss prism here, which is often pretty useful with Trump. He's the ultimate loyal soldier doing time for the boss and getting paid for his loyalty. So he has a severance agreement. I think it's worth a couple $1 million to him. And he's the guy who knows where all the bodies are buried, dating back to Trump's father, for whom he first started working. Now, that severance agreement says he may not cooperate voluntarily with the government. That doesn't mean he can't be subpoenaed, of course. The government could absolutely have called him to the stand. But what we found out, this was a really, to me, startling fact. They hadn't even tried to get in touch with him when he came up. Justice Merchan said, where is he? Why hasn't anyone tried? And he actually did the judge say, let's have him here tomorrow, see if he would invoke the Fifth Amendment, because when you do that, you're considered unavailable, and at least see. And the prosecution didn't want to do that. Why not? Because the prosecution only wants to put witnesses on who have met with them and they're able to prepare, especially in a case like this, where with the exception of Cohen, they are constructing their proof completely with people who are still friendly with or even loyal with, to still, Donald Trump. Think of Westerhout, who was obviously still trying to pander to him, and Pecker still likes him, and Hope Hicks was pained by having to give negative testimony about him, and Rona Graff basically didn't say anything except to say these records are real. But in every case, the DA knew what they were going to say because they'd met with them, probably with their lawyers paid for by the Trump organization. And, they may have had to pull teeth, but they knew what teeth they were pulling. Weisselberg is contractually bound not to cooperate with them. So they would bring him in to talk, and he would not talk to them. And there's no requirement that you talk to a DA. So that's the reason he was kryptonite to them, because that combined with a record of perjury for Donald Trump meant he could get up there and tell complete bald-faced lies and totally derail the entire prosecution. So they wanted no part of him. The defense, of course, wanted no part of him, among other reasons, because he could tell the truth, having already done, 2 trips in Rikers Island for Trump. So that's why Weisselberg isn't there. Nevertheless, they can use it to build a whole sort of, castle in the air. As long as there's a evidentiary basis for it. Now, there's an important fact here that happened along the way of the trial. When Merchant said, let's bring him in and see what he has to say, that was to consider the prosecution motion, which wasn't to call him, but rather to introduce to the jury the severance agreement, which says he can't cooperate and which shows the financial bias and interest because he's going to get that $2 million. And Merchant said, let's at least hear what he's going to say first. And the DA wanted no part of that, so much so that the DA said, you know what, we'll withdraw our motion. And Merchant later considered it anyway, and he decided not to introduce the severance agreement, not to give that to the jury. So that means, and there's no other way to, Weisselberg could testify to it, but otherwise it hasn't come in. So when the defense gets up there and says, where is Alan Weisselberg, assuming the New York Times is correct. And I wanted to talk about it because it's at least a theory, the thing that I've been saying again and again, they are so needing. Where is Alan Weisselberg? Where is Alan Weisselberg? The DA knows it's all a kind of a charade, and the defense knows the DA knows that. But the DA can't come back and explain it. They can't explain by severance agreement. You can try. They can ask for a missing witness instruction, which basically says you jury should take nothing, make no inferences based on Weisselberg's not being here. You shouldn't think the testimony would have been better for one or for the other. But prosecution has the burden of proof beyond a reasonable doubt. So if they can't say where, they can say, well, the defense could have called him. But, the defense has a strong response to that, which is it's not our job to prove the case. It's their job. And where is Alan Weisselberg? And he is the real guy in charge. Now, If that's the story they tell, look, at least first, it's a story, something for the jury to chew on, the thing they've been missing. If you think about it, there are ways to, push back, ways in which Cohen's story is corroborated without Weisselberg. But at a couple really key junctures, especially this very first one, where Trump says, go out and, phony this up and figure out how we're going to pay Cohen. That's only Cohen and Weisselberg. And so, if on that, they have to take, Cohen's word. And it just, the freight of it means that when the, defense combines its, whereas Weisselberg, refrain with you can't believe Cohen, the immediate response is you don't have to. He's corroborated across the board, but it's not quite across the board, right? So there's going to be a few squares on the board where he's not corroborated, and this is one of them. So anyway, I think there's a lot to be said that the prosecution, which goes second, can still very much, bulk up the case, but a lot of it is based on common sense or inference from documents, et cetera. So it at least, if this is the approach they take, it at least puts them in the game with a story, as opposed to simply scattershot attacks on especially Michael Cohen and Stormy Daniels and the like. So we'll see if that's the approach they take, but every other story I've tried to consider seems foreclosed to them. So I can see why, this is their best port in the very big storm now confronting Donald Trump. Talk to you later. Thanks for tuning in. If you enjoyed this video and other Talking Feds content, please take a second to like and subscribe. Talk to you later.